What can we expect moving forward? I mean, here we are, we're heading into winter. What can we expect this winter?
A whole lot of chemical ice nucleation. And
What is that?
we discussed that off there a bit. That's a primary aspect of climate engineering operations. It is the means by which they can and are chemically cooling cloud moisture, which causes a cold, dense layer of air to descend to the surface. And that's why we have these radical temperature whiplash swings. Again, that's a chemical process. These are patented processes. Your listeners can search Chinese scientists create artificial snowstorm, and they acknowledged on the record, all mainstream media covered it, CNN, MSNBC, Popular Science, The Guardian, everybody covered it. They basically are engineering snowstorms over Beijing in that case. They did a couple $1 billion worth of damage, at which point they decided not to publicize that anymore. If the Chinese can do it, do we think we can't do it? Kim, do you remember with the Chinese Olympics, they announced, don't worry about rain, we'll make sure it doesn't?
Right.
They've been manipulating weather for as many years as the US has. And this aspect, the ability to create a chemical snowstorm, is a core part of climate engineering. So when we saw the snowstorm in New Orleans, January 21st of this year, and that date is significant, isn't it? The day after the new administration comes in, maybe a policy change. Those were blatant acts of weather warfare. Snowstorm in New Orleans, snowstorm on the Gulf Coast with the record warm Gulf of Mexico. And by the way, on the hurricane manipulation, just to point out so I don't forget, where don't we see storms forming ever? Around the oil pumping infrastructure in the Gulf of Mexico. Never. Always spared. Is that just nature trying to make sure we don't lose our oil pumping capability? I don't think so. That's climate engineering. So while we have the snowstorm on the Gulf Coast in Florida, on the same day in the polar regions, we had above freezing in the middle of winter, above freezing and rain. Alaska, Siberia, Greenland, Iceland. Nobody said a word about that. So again, that's a psychological aspect of climate engineering, when they can make people believe that the climate is in a different state than it actually is. Well, look at the snowstorm in New Orleans. It can't be warming, right? And again, people buy that, and they use Denver for these operations commonly because Denver sits in a basin. And so we've seen Denver for the last 5 years, literally in winter and late winter, go from record high temperatures in the 80s to single digits in less than a day. Less than a day. And that's, again, Denver, because it sits in the basin, the cold air sits there like your open air freezer in a market. You see this freezer with no top, but everything's frozen inside because the cold air sits in that basin. And Kim, you may or may not remember this, the 100,000 cattle that died in a freak flash snowstorm in
Mhm.
2013, I believe it was October 4th, 2013. We had 100,000 cattle killed in Dakota in a freak flash snowstorm, while on the same day, at the same time, it was 85 degrees and raining in Chicago, it was 89 degrees and raining in Kansas City. How in the hell do you have a freak flash snowstorm that kills 100,000 cattle? It started snowing at 40 degrees, by the way. 2 days later, all these cattle are sitting around in the mud dead. And that's absolutely weather warfare, chemical ice nucleation. Same thing happened in South America. 250,000 cold hardy alpacas killed in a freak flash snowstorm. In the case of the cattle, this material, this chemically nucleated material, tends to stick to their hides, their snouts.
Mm.
If a cow can't breathe through its nose, it will die. It won't breathe through its mouth. So this is murderous. But when we called and contacted the Dakota Ranchers Association and mentioned weather modification, you would think we said aliens were invading. They didn't want anything to do with it, and no communication after that. I mean, people simply don't want to believe what's too terrifying to face.
So, what do we do about this, Dane? What do we do about all of this?
This is to start with. People need to prioritize. If your head's on fire, you need to not worry about your stub toe and your skin knee at the moment. This is the biggest hole in the bottom of the boat. And we have people focused on everything but this. They're caught up in political theater, sports, bread and circus until the brutal bitter end. So if we're going to make any change at this late hour, and the hour is definitely late, and this affects many other aspects too, Kim. I mean, even nuclear cataclysm is directly related to this issue because climate engineering is destroying the protective layers of the atmosphere. we're now very susceptible to a CME, coronal mass ejection, or a solar flare, which would shut down grid power around the globe, which would mean nuclear power plants can't cool themselves, which means we have Fukushima times 100 or 200, game over. So I'm pointing out from every conceivable direction, climate engineering is totally derailing the planet's life support systems, contaminating every breath we take, making us vulnerable to nuclear meltdowns. We have to deal with this. So, bottom line is, this is a matter of prioritization, and how you bring this issue to light is to share credible data from a credible source. And we strive to be that source at geoengineeringwatch.org. We're non-political. We don't sell anything. My mission in life is to expose this issue. That's why I live, eat, breathe at this point. This is all I do 7 days a week. And so by sharing credible data, it's much more effective than running out in the street, pointing at the sky and ranting. So again, and starting those spot fires of awareness, if you will, if we look at the mathematical equation, Kim, if you shared credible data with two people the first day of a 30-day month, and those two each the second day, and so on for 30 days, you're into the millions, and people don't realize the exponential nature of that equation. And we're getting close right now. I want to stress that people need to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and not to be hung up on a guaranteed happy ending before they do anything. That's not courage. Again, it's a matter of morality at this point, isn't it? I mean,
But
aren't
what do we
we?
do? I mean, what should we do?
You share credible data with people again, and once we push this issue to light, it's about reaching a critical mass of awareness. That's the bottom line. There's
Okay.
no other way forward, because they will stomp out any real significant media coverage of this. I mean, I've had interview requests from BBC, New York Times, USA Today, National Geographic, Wall Street Journal. None of these interviews ever reach the finish line because they've stomped them out. They don't want that kind of coverage. So that's why I'm so grateful for a voice like yours, which is very extensive and articulate. And again, that's about reaching critical mass. And once we do, and all those that are either actively or passively involved, or attorneys, or anybody that's in a position to help, at that point, when they know they're going down with the ship, they join the battle to expose this issue. That's the pitchforks and torches moment. Our military brothers and sisters, and this is most key, and their families and defense industry families and members realize they are literally creating or participating in their own demise. We need them to wake up and stand down. Our only chance of stopping these operations is from the inside out. We're not going to do it through the front door. Those in power are never going to let go of this weapon of mass destruction. Never.
Yeah.
Have to stop it from the inside out by waking up those that are carrying out this mission.
Well, it certainly is not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, people should at least look at it from, just start with, would the government, would the military try to manipulate weather? Start with that. And I think that any thinking person should be able to come to the conclusion of, yeah, of course they would. I mean, it's make or break, like I said, for battles, for geopolitics when you're trying to cause, the breakdown of, I mean, we've seen this over and over, the government trying to collapse Venezuela, trying to collapse Iran, trying to fend off China's Belt and Road Initiative. So you could see, it doesn't take much to think, well, yeah, probably the military would try to start thinking of ways to manipulate weather in order to manipulate people for their agenda. That's not a stretch. So I think even just starting there, I mean, even if people don't have any evidence, if they haven't gone to, geoengineeringwatch.com, or they haven't done any of that yet, they haven't really, this is the first time they're really kind of hearing it besides what they've seen online, which is, oh, you're just all a bunch of conspiracy theorists. But I mean, remember, practically everything was a conspiracy theory at one point, and now it's not a conspiracy theory, but it's true. And, it could be that people aren't, I mean, I think we're getting closer and closer, certainly, to a time where people are more open to, hey, this is more than just, like you said, dumping jet fuel in the sky, or don't worry about any of that. That's just condensation. That's not, whatever. Don't worry about those trails in the sky. Don't worry about that. Don't be a conspiracy theorist. And I think people are so now used to um, being called conspiracy theorists only to find out that they weren't at all, that I think people are more open to, okay, what else are they doing to us? And I'm
And
sure
it's,
there's even things that we can't even think of that they're doing to us on top of this, right? This is like
yes.
one layer with like the biological stuff that they
Yeah.
do, with the economic stuff that they do. And it's like, this is one layer. And I'm sure they're probably doing something else I can't even think about right now, but um,
You're completely correct. And in case of, let's, like Venezuela, for example, of course they're there for the resources. How many people know that Venezuela has known oil deposits that exceed any other country in the world, including Saudi Arabia? How many people
Yeah.
know that? Of course they're there for the resource. And again, in regard to them using this as a weapon, of course they're using this as a weapon. And in the sharing of data, again, with the dimming documentary at geoengineeringwatch.org, what we encourage people to do is to mail a link of that to agency officials, media, elected officials. And what helps that to be seen is to openly CC as many other active or aware and awake activists that you can, so that whoever you're sending that link to, and do it peacefully and professionally,
Yeah.
but ask them why they're not addressing this issue. And when they know there's 50 or 100 other people listening in on that conversation, they're much more likely to say something. And again, we have so many elected officials that are doing nothing about this. I've had a meeting with Gavin Newsom at the Capitol and his top aide, and he's a tool for the power structure, period, nothing more. He couldn't deny any of the data that I presented to him, and he was leaned on to have that meeting too by someone important. And again, these people are towing the line for their own personal reasons, and they have no interest in the public good. I've had hour-long video conference calls with speakers of the House in various states. They know they're not doing anything about this issue. So there's courage is in short supply, Kim. But again, if people would start these spot fires of awareness and sending out a link to the dimming, there's no advertising in the dimming, there's no politics. It's about an issue on which all of our collective futures most completely and immediately depend. All of us are needed in this battle to start those spot fires of awareness. And if we stoke those fires and they merge into a blaze that can't be put out, and we put this issue on the radar once and for all, the equation will change. And the difference with this issue, Kim, and anything else, COVID-19, what really happened in 9/11, you cannot put this in the rearview mirror. It's getting bigger and more ominous in front of us every single day. It's going to get worse very quickly in the coming weeks and months. We have crossed many planetary boundaries, they're called. Links in the chain are breaking now. And the more the planet starts to spiral and circle the drain with its life support systems breaking down, the more the power structure is doubling down on these operations. It's an absolute circus of insanity. This issue you cannot put in the rearview mirror.
Dane, thank you so much for being here and shining the light on this issue. Really appreciate it. We do have the links down below to geoengineeringwatch.com and to the dimming. Dane Wigington, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for your voice. Very grateful for your help in this battle.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.